Silencing the Shame, Your Mental Health, Frank Ski, Nina Brown. Nina, you talked about the terms that we hear so much on social media. Some
Yeah.
of them we say like a cliche, but other they're very serious.
That is true. And before we get into the terms that I was referring to, I just want to reintroduce our panelists. If you're just now joining us, we have Lamar Tyler with us, Shanti Das of Silence the Shame, Dr. Vaughn Gay, Dr. Emmett Schaefer, also known as Dr. E, and Tanya Walden. So we talk about these terms. Are they being overused? I mean, we throw them out like it's nothing. I hear it all the time. Narcissistic. He's gaslighting you. She's gaslighting you. They're toxic. Like, first of all, what do those terms mean?
I was joking earlier when I used to work at Morehouse School of Medicine in the
Uh-huh.
Office of Counseling Services. Did a lot of counseling with Generation Z, and they would come into my office. I'm 38 years old, by the way, right? So right in that middle space. So they would come into my office and they would use these terms. Such and such a gaslighted me, or they responded with their text message in this way. So this means, and it took me a while to really understand not only what the words meant, but how they were actually describing how they felt. Like, so as a therapist, it's not the words, it's actually what they're describing and what they're trying to communicate and express. And so, are we overusing them? I think that in any sense, the same way we would say that that girl crazy, or bipolar, off her meds, a few decades ago, it's just this generation's way of, I don't want to say inappropriately expressing, but just not expressing or verbalizing how they're truly feeling, and using these catchphrases and cliches to
What do
sound
they
good.
mean? What do they even mean? Tell us in your way, in your clinical
Yeah.
way.
Like, what is a narcissist really?
So gaslighting would be just like lighting a match, right? So I have a fuse, and you light that match, and it's gonna go, and then at some point it's gonna blow up, right? So gaslighting, right?
So
But
is that somebody doing that to you
Right.
for
Yeah.
you to blow up, or they're going to blow up?
Exactly.
But
They're
it can
doing
also be somebody talking
to-
down to you
right.
constantly,
And-
right? Very, condescending. That is actually a thing.
Right. And narcissistic is, kind of, I guess, what we're experiencing, what we see around the world right now, right? Somebody who is really about focused on themselves and no one else, and not really thinking about any of the impact that they have on any of their actions, behaviors, or anything. So that's what they would say as narcissistic.
And blaming you for it.
And blaming you for it.
And that could be gaslighting as well, though.
Right.
Gaslighting too is when someone is you always find a problem in someone.
Right.
Like, just it's always something like you're doing, and you make someone feel like they're constantly the problem, and almost really start messing with their headspace.
Right. And that you are the one that's causing that.
Right.
Right. You're the one that's causing that. I hear a lot of they have anger problems. Right. I hear this in the teenagers now that they're even in middle school. They're saying he has anger problems. Right. And when I look at these kinds of things, I think that one of the things that in working with youth, they are very succinct and very short in what and how they describe whatever they do, right? And that's why we have all of the TTYS and LOLs and all of that, and all of the different things that we have to figure out that our kids are saying. And so I think that that's really a way that they communicate. I think as far as therapists and as far as the adults and parents, we have to get on board and start to really understand what that means, so that we can then understand what problems we may be having to solve.
There's a question coming from our Facebook Live from Michelle Roper. She said, how do you handle social media and electronics when it comes to adult children? If these are things that played a part of a suicide attempt, do we remove them from our adult children or just monitor?
With social media, it's the crazy thing about it is that if you're not involved and immersed, it really cannot have an effect on you, right? It is an alternative, augmented reality. That's what it's AR is what it is. It's a representation of what it is that we want people to know and see of us, right? And so because of that, when we are consuming all of that, we're consuming, if you just looked at your Instagram's timeline, we're consuming all that as 100% fact. And then we start to compare ourselves. We start to look at what we have done or what we haven't done. And it really puts you in an alternative space mentally yourself. You're living in the tangible real world, but we are allowing ourselves to only see the world through an augmented lens. And to even go back to some of those terms, the word toxic is thrown around so much, and essentially it has become a word to say that if I disagree with how you're, moving or doing things, you're toxic, you're narcissistic, and really what it is that the person is saying, I may not agree with you, or I don't understand why you are thinking and behaving in a certain kind of a way. So instead of us having an understanding amongst one another as people, I'm just going to throw a label on you. And that label has to be very derogatory and very negative so that you feel that what you said or did hurts me a lot. It hurts me really badly.
And can I just add about social media? You know, when we saw what happened with George Floyd, right, and so many other black men getting killed during the pandemic, those video clips that people post, every time we see them and we're rehashing it, you're re-traumatizing yourself. There was a young lady who died by suicide, may she rest in peace, 2 weeks ago in Louisiana. She literally posted her note on social media. And I reposted that in her photo, just trying to bring attention to it to create awareness. But someone in the mental health field told me, you probably should not repost that note. And so I immediately deleted it. And it's not like you're necessarily in fear of someone being a copycat, but we're re-traumatizing one another because reading that suicide note is a lie. And so we do have to be mindful of what our kids ingest via social media and really try to monitor that.
James Hunt has a great question from the Facebook Live. All of this sounds great, but when you have children who are in the midst of a crisis and their chemical balance is off, it's not as easy. I had 3 children that suffered from mental health issues, and there's a lot of help out there, but getting help is the issue. Not every professional I've been through, every part of this process has been helpful. And Tanya, I want to direct this towards you because when your son was going through it, something you you were vocal about is the lack of help for your son after he went through his suicide attempt, and you ended up writing legislation. You contacted the White House. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've learned since your son has gone through his attempt?
Well, what I've learned here, and I am in Georgia, is that we still don't have all the help that we need. We only have about 20 stabilization units, and that is when someone is in acute crisis and you call someone, they will have you on a 24-hour hold. The issue was that, though, it's mostly for women. They may have 14 to 16 beds, and 2 of them are called transitional beds. With that, if you have a male person, they may not get a bed. They will turn them away from the hospital after 24 hours as well. So that person that's looking for help, try every outlet. Call the actual stabilization units yourself. The hospitals won't always know. They say that they have immediate response and they know everything that's happening in all of them. And respite care for parents is also a thing. There's not a lot of them locally here, but you can go someplace for your own reprieve if you need it.
And I wanted to commend that commenter because it's not easy. Like, this conversation isn't easy. Getting help isn't easy. And it isn't something where, like, you just flip that switch and everything okay. And I think oftentimes, time back to social media, you have people on social media say, hey, just take a self-care Sunday. You'll be good. Get back out there. Where people say, well, your job is stressing you out or it's taking you to a bad place, not good for your mental health, just quit. But if I'm a single parent and I got 3 kids, what may be worse for my mental health is not being able to provide food or shelter for them and then all the things that come with that. And we run a community traffic sales and profit over 40,000 entrepreneurs. 9 out of 10 black entrepreneurs are solopreneurs. They don't have teams. Like, if they don't show up every day, they don't eat. So, and many times, like, these are tough decisions, tough conversations, and it's not just like I can put everything on hold because I have to manage everything that's going on and keep the business going and keep the kids going and keep my parents I'm taking care of, all these other things going at the same time.
And I would be remiss, this is Shanti, if I did not bring up the Mental Health Parity Act. It's going to help. It's House Bill 1013. It was passed, and it'll help Georgians access affordable mental health and substance use disorder treatment for themselves. We know traditionally the system has been broken nationally, probably even globally, when we talk about severe mental illness. And so my heart goes out to that parent. It is not easy. I have seen things happen within our family that it really places the family in a bad place. And there's not enough facilities, out there that really deal with people who are severely mentally ill. But also we have to realize they're people too, right? They don't need to just be thrown into a mental hospital. They need real treatment, real care. Frank and I were talking about this off air. So it's a lot more work to be done. But again, I am glad that this bill was passed in Georgia. It's a starting place.
Shanti, you spoke in your introduction that you lost your father to suicide. Remind us, how old were you again when that happened?
I was just 7 months old.
7 months old.
And I did not deal with it. We did not talk about it. I was one of those kids who watched my mom be depressed growing up, and we didn't talk about it. And I ended up unraveling as an adult and almost took my own life in 2015.
Two questions. One we did not ask. How much of mental health is hereditary?
So I'm not sure if there's a specific statistic on that. We do now know that just the same way that trauma can be passed down generationally, the same way that certain comorbid diseases and diagnoses are passed down with our physical illness, some can be passed down with our mental illness as well. So we're looking at diagnosable mental illnesses and then also environmental factors that cause people to have unhealthy mental health, well, mentally unhealthy days, which consistently can lead that person to having a diagnosable mental illness. So some can be hereditary, a lot more is more environmental.
And can I take the other side of that coin? If you have a brain, you have things mentally going on, right? And you're going to have a journey called life. You're going to be raise kids. You're going to be single. You're going to be out there. If you have a brain, you're going to have mental kinds of things going on. And so that health, the second part of that is how do we take care of the mental part? That's the health part, right? And so everyone has that. And so the way that we then start to seek how we get assistance, how do we get access, those kinds of things are the things that we then start to look at when we start feeling bad, when we start feeling like we feel hopelessness, we feel fear, we feel anxiety. So mental health is really a something that is a human thing that if we look at it in those terms, then we understand that from time to time we need to get this help.
Doc, real quick, I wanted to say this. This just came to me. When Jalen was in school, I took him to his pediatrician every year for a physical, right? He wasn't sick, but he had to have a required physical to play sports, right? And I'm assuming they do that regardless of sports. But why not take our children to a therapist? There doesn't have to be something wrong, but just to have them checked, just to make sure that they are progressing as they should, right? As their brains are growing. Just like you said, if you have a brain, you have things going on mentally. We should not think that there has to be something wrong just to take our children to therapy, just to make sure they are progressing as they should, right? That should be a thing.
That is exactly right. And to your point, the physical, and then also going to the dentist, right? We don't go to the dentist when we have this. As a therapist, I see a therapist, right? I don't think that I could do my work at the level that I do it, at the depth that I do it, at the span that I have now of all of the clients that I'm seeing. I don't think that I could do it without seeing a therapist. So
preventative care.
And
preventative care.
Exactly.
Are looking for help also learn the triggers of the child. As a caregiver, it's already difficult on you to just understand everything that's going on with that person that you're caring for, but listening, acknowledging, and owning it yourself before you get to the point of going outside of the home to look for help. You may have it right there. You may have some of those answers already. And stressing about it yourself could cause more commotion in the household. So listening before going out is really the key component.
We're getting ready to go to a break. One of the things I wanted to mention is before the pandemic, this country went through a big deal about minimum wage. It was a whole thing about minimum wage, minimum wage, minimum wage. The one thing that the pandemic has taught us is it's not the minimum wage, it's the work environment. We're now going through the great,
recession.
Not recession, people leaving their jobs.
Resignation.
Exactly.
And the biggest thing that has come out of the resignation is you have all of these companies now saying, we'll give you the $25 an hour. And people are like, nope, I want 4-day work weeks. I want childcare. I want this. And we really realize that one thing the pandemic has shown us is the importance of taking care of ourselves and our well-being. And I think that's vitally important. We as African Americans for a very long time were always slaves to our jobs. And we kind of felt like it was a disservice to quit or resign or whatever. But take care of yourself and your mental health so that you are better for your children. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to do closing thoughts. So each of you will have a minute to do a close and also give out your personal information for everybody who is watching the live stream. Taking care of your mental health, silencing the shame on the Frank Ski Show with Nina Brown. All right, everyone, silencing the shame, your mental health on the Frank Ski Show, Nina Brown. And in our closing, we'll just go around and everyone introduce yourself again, give out your social media, and leave us with a parting thought.
All right. Again, my name is Lamar Tyler. Along with my wife Ronnie, we own one of America's fast-growing companies, Tyler Media. My closing thought is: don't suffer in silence. Get the help that you need, and even if you aren't aware of what to do or how to do it, get with a professional that can help you navigate that. And you can find me at Lamar Tyler on Instagram.
Shanti Das, I am the founder and CEO of Silence the Shame. The one thing I can tell you from personal experience, if you're going through something, don't be embarrassed about it. Be okay with not being okay, but what's not okay is not getting the help that you need. You got to open up. You got to talk to people. You also have to set boundaries for yourself, both personally and professionally. Boundaries are a complete blessing, and being vulnerable in your own households and in the workplace allows others around you to become vulnerable. So be okay with opening up and sharing. You can reach out to our organization at www.silencetheshame.com. Follow us on Instagram at Silence the Shame. And we have a lot of helpful content that we curate throughout the year on our YouTube page at Silence the Shame TV. And to support our organization, you can text the word silence to 707070. And lastly, May 1st is now, forever, Black Children's Mental Health Day in the state of Georgia. Shout out to Senator Anderson, who wrote the resolution. So we're going to do more for Black children's mental health and raise funding and create programs in our city.
Wow, what a great conversation. And thank you, Frank, Nina, for having us this morning. Dr. Vaughn Gay, Executive Director of Holistic Atlanta. You can find me on Instagram at the ATL LPC and also at Holistic Atlanta. Just a parting shot, for everyone listening. Number one, thank you for, really valuing and understanding that everything starts with a healthy thought, right? If we really address this thing with mental health and mental illness with true intention, and true fervor, we really can address and be able to bring some of these issues home and really be able to take care of them in a way to where they are not issues that the future generations are dealing with. So again, conversations like this, mental health education, going and seeing a therapist, being vulnerable, we have to be intentional with all these things, not just talk about it, we have to be about it as well.
Again, thank you, Frank Ski, and thank you, Nina Brown, for helping us to level up this conversation, this very important conversation. This is Dr. Emmett Schaefer, otherwise known as Dr. E at The Parent Pilot, www.parentpilot.com. Also, you can find me on Instagram at The Parent Pilot. We're also going to be expanding our services, and we're going to have a new brand called the Mental Health Concierge, so look out for that. And my parting comment would just be courage through vulnerability. Being vulnerable allows you to be courageous. Thank you.
This is Tanya Walden. Thanks, Frank and Nina. You can find me on Instagram at Tanya Walden or My Life is a Gift. I would say listening, learning the triggers, find a care strategy and safety plan. While we've been here for these 2 hours, 11 people worldwide have died by suicide, and over 200, that's documented, have attempted suicide. Share, be transparent.
I'm going to post all of the contact information for all of our panelists today on our Instagram page and our Facebook. It's at The Frank Ski Show.
All right. And don't forget, you can go to our Facebook page at KISS 104.1. You'll be able to see this again. It is live streamed, but it will be saved on our site as well. Thank you to our promotions team. Thank you to our technical department.
Engineering.
Thank you very much to our program director, Terry Avery, for allowing us to stop the music for 2 hours to deal with this very important issue in our community.
And thank you to our digital team for making sure we were up live today. You guys have been amazing to work with. Thank you.
All right, your inspirational vitamin is coming up next. It's a good one, dealing with mental health.